piacere. Coming up on French Kiss.
You know, I want to give my kids all the things I didn't have on a emotional level.
It's scary.
It's scary.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's like you're bringing another person into this world.
Yeah. I basically felt like I've been taught how to be the best, not how to be a happy person. I know I have a lot of anger in me still, even though I'm working on it. And I don't want to put that on my kids. I think it's a huge chance to have bilingual, even trilingual parents, you know. But the thing we have to be careful about is not confuse them, you know.
That's my biggest fear.
And
I feel like I grew up confused.
from around 5-6 months.
So the baby is starting to hear us now?
Yeah.
Ooh.
And so
the baby is enjoying this podcast?
I hope so.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to French
Kiss.
Kiss. Today we're going to be talking about deciding to become parents. Did we decide? Or did it just...
Or did the universe decide for us? It feels like it sometimes.
Yeah. So, without further ado, please enjoy French Kiss. Hello, welcome back to another episode of French Kiss. We're here with Zoe Superville,
Hi.
my guest, as I am the host today.
Yes, you are, for the second time.
For the third time,
Oh,
actually.
sorry, yeah.
Third time. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, we lose track of time when we're... Because people don't know, but we don't go home between episodes. We actually sleep
Never.
here. So this has been our home for the past couple of weeks. How are you feeling today?
I'm great.
Yeah?
I'm looking forward for this episode.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, today's episode is about becoming parents. Deciding. Yeah, that's an important nuance there.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so for those of you who don't know... but so essentially, yeah, we're having a baby in June, which is in a couple of months. We passed the halfway point.
Yeah.
Which was a big milestone. And now the baby looks like a baby.
Looks like a human being.
Yeah, I mean, he's looked like a baby for a while, but it was hard for us to conceive because it wasn't at all baby size. But now it's like getting, what is it now? It's like a melon.
It's like a cantaloupe.
Cantaloupe. Cantaloupe. I don't know anymore.
And the week before it was rhubarb. Rhubarb?
No, rhubarb. I think it's rhubarb.
Rhubarb,
yeah.
Which is so funny because
it's just a stick. You just imagine the baby.
It doesn't fit my body.
I think it's like the mass of the rhubarb. It's weird.
I don't know,
I didn't
but
like that.
The maths aren't good.
Yeah, the math's not. The numbers aren't correct.
Yes.
All right. So let's get into it. You ready?
I'm ready.
Before I ask my first question.
Yeah.
I'm gonna lay down a little bit of groundwork, a little bit of backstory. Zoe and I, for a little while now, have known that we wanted to have kids together. We knew for a while that we wanted to have kids. We just didn't know when we wanted to have kids. That was the big question. We would go back and forth. We felt like we would spend our time sort of pushing back the moment to be more rational. Like we really wanted a baby, but it was like, no, come on, let's wait. We got time. Which is true. We have time. We're not even 30 yet. And we're deciding to have a baby.
It feels like we've been fighting against baby fever for our entire relationship.
Pretty much, yeah.
But when I truly think about it, I'm not sure it started 4 years ago, you know? I don't know.
Well, we're going to get into that. So we decided shortly after we decided we were going to get married that we would start trying after we got married. Like as soon as we were married, we were like, we're going to try.
We're so traditional.
It was just more of a timeline thing, especially because in our minds, it would take us at least a year. At least a year to get pregnant. Like we saw all these people around us sort of struggling. So we're like, we have time. We had a couple of like scares, to say the least. You don't take the pills. So like, you know, there were moments where like, we didn't know. And every time we were kind of nervous about it. But in the back of both of our minds, we were like, well, if we're pregnant, we're pregnant.
Yeah.
Whatever. Que sera, sera. The destiny is chosen for us. But anyways, we decided, it was a hard decision of like, okay, once we get married, let's like actually try. yeah, we told our family we're going to start trying after getting married, which is like just telling your family you're raw dogging it. Anyways, I'm definitely cutting that out.
You love this joke,
I
huh?
love this joke. You just, hey, Grandma, we started having sex without a condom. We're going crazy. All right, that's not going in the podcast.
Oh, yes, it is.
All right, so
Please.
what was I gonna say? Yes, so we decide we're gonna have a baby after the wedding, knowing we have like a year or two ahead of us.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be a bit of struggle. That's why I was saying we had a couple of whoopsie moments, because every time you ended up not being pregnant, and we're like, okay, so maybe we're not that fertile. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's gonna take us a while before we get married on September 7th. The party goes on till September 8th, obviously.
You'll have all the details today. All the tea.
And you were, I mean, tell me if this is okay to share. I'll cut it out if not. But you were supposed to have your period like
Right after the
3
wedding.
days after the wedding.
Yeah.
During our honeymoon, 2 weeks later,
We find out.
no period.
No period.
So we do the test. Zoe's pregnant. We found out in a RV because that was our honeymoon. We were in a camping car
Nearby Cinque Terre
near Cinque Terre.
in
Yeah.
Italy.
And in the camping bathroom, in the camping area bathroom, you find out that you are pregnant, and it was a bit of a shock.
Yes.
And so, essentially, so you guys know, the baby is due June 8th. So I'll let you do the math, but 9 months earlier, September 8th. So, so not only did it come quick, it came the day of
the wedding.
the day of the wedding.
Yeah.
So that's the backstory on that.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how that happened. Now, after this brief introduction, here's my first question to you. Are you ready?
Yes.
Can you please tell us about the moment you found out you were pregnant in the bathroom of Cinque Terre camping? And what was your immediate reaction and how has it evolved since then?
Oh, wow. Man, I freaked out.
Yeah, you did.
I freaked out. I was in panic mode for a while. At first, we were not that sure because when you do a test, when you pee on the stick, if you're pregnant, 2 bars have to appear, and in fact, 2 bars appeared, but one of them was very light, very blurred.
And little did we know, as soon as there even like a hint of a second, like even if it's like there's no reason.
It's like you're pregnant.
Yeah, you're pregnant. It's sure because it should just not exist at all.
And maybe there
But
was a part of me that wouldn't believe it, So we were like, okay, so we're gonna wait a couple of days, and we're gonna do another test, which we did, and the 2 bars were still there and stronger than ever.
Yeah.
And this, I mean, at this moment we were like almost 100% certain about it.
Yeah.
Even though when we came back to France, we did a blood test.
Mm-hmm. I wasn't 100% certain at all.
You were not?
Like, I mean, I knew you were pregnant, but in my mind, because other people had tried being pregnant and it didn't work out, we had known somebody who, like, after 6 months, lost their baby.
Yeah.
So, like, because we had heard all these stories at this point, in my mind, I was like, this isn't a thing until I see the baby, until we do our first scan.
Yeah, okay.
So, we knew you were pregnant, but for me, we weren't having a baby yet.
Yeah. And I think everything felt surreal.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
it's happening so fast.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Well, do you want to talk about your timeline up to that point?
I mean, so...
Your summer?
First, my summer?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because it was nonstop for you.
Yeah, I mean, I had a great year. 2024 was, I think, so far, the best year ever. I've been traveling a lot. I came visit you in Brussels because you were doing a show there. Mm-hmm. I went to Avignon for the theater festival with friends. I went to freaking Burning Man with your sister.
Yes.
Which was a dream for me. This was my first time there. We had our civil wedding, the big wedding, the ceremony. Mm-hmm. all my friends during the year were a lot present for me, and we did many celebrations together. Even a bachelorette party. Went to a rave with all my bridesmaids. Was amazing. And yeah, it was nonstop. Like after Burning Man, I had my flights. I think on the 2nd of September,
Yeah.
and we were getting married on the 7th. So like it was a really tight planning.
Yeah, I mean, it was back to back to back.
yeah,
There was
yeah,
just
yeah.
no downtime.
It was intense, and like when we left for our honeymoon, I thought, okay, we will have some time together. We will, have the time to reset. To
Be a married couple.
yeah, and enjoy married life.
Just the two of us.
Just the two of us. And no, we didn't have time for this.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, but not even 2 weeks after, there were another big news. Big new. Big new.
Big news.
C'est toujours au pluriel?
Yeah.
Yeah?
It was big news. Yeah, it was big news.
A big new.
It's a big new because there's only one of them. That's funny.
Like, it was nonstop. And it was a bit emotionally, it was intense. I felt like I couldn't, take a break.
Yeah.
And so, as I said, my first reaction was freaking out.
Yeah.
For many reasons. First of all, I don't feel like an adult myself yet. So I was like, how the hell am I going to raise?
Well, you felt like a kid, you said.
Yeah, I felt like a kid.
So how are you going to raise a kid when you're still a
when
kid?
you feel a kid yourself, like how is this happening?
I still feel that, by the way.
Yeah, me
but
too.
I feel like
and
it's
I think
a strength.
it's a good thing
Yeah,
too.
for
like,
sure.
Yeah.
Like, obviously,
But
we're not children. Like, we're we are capable individuals. No, but I know exactly what you feel.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to know that if we rationalize it, we are
Because it's a
independent adults. We just act like children, which...
We just kept our children's souls,
Yes, exactly.
let's say.
Yeah, for sure.
But having a baby is a big responsibility. Like it's the biggest one ever. And also, it's I don't know, but emotionally, it's ça vient remuer plein de choses.
Yeah.
Having a baby.
Yeah, having a baby really just like muddles up all your feelings and everything comes back up.
Yeah.
All your fears, your anxieties.
Yeah.
They're like present, hyper present when you find out you're pregnant. Yeah.
So we took the RV for our next destination, and I had a big good cry in the car.
Yeah.
And I couldn't talk for an hour at first.
Well, you got two big news that day.
Oh yes, that's true.
It's really important to mention.
Because after the honeymoon, I was supposed to start a new job, and they told me like basically a week before.
The day you found out you were pregnant.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, we don't have the budget for it. We're gonna hire a trainee.
Yeah. So you were jobless the day you were pregnant. You found out you were pregnant.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
This is some sitcom content, sitcom material.
Or podcast material. Yeah.
So it was a lot. Also, like when it comes to your like background, past, family relationships and stuff, everything comes back to you. And I felt, how can I phrase that? And I still feel like that. I don't feel entirely accomplished in life,
Yeah.
professionally and also emotionally. Like I've been doing a lot of work lately.
Yeah.
Really really invested myself in therapy for the 3 past years.
Yeah.
And I've been digging a lot of stuff. And I feel like I've done I've come a long way, but there's still so much work to do, to be done. And I was like, I would have liked to have one more year maybe, to really settle all the things I've learned, all the things I discovered about myself. And yeah, it felt a bit early to me. But now, it changed a lot. Like the first month were quite hard for me.
Yeah.
Especially with the first trimester symptoms and stuff. I didn't feel physically good.
You didn't have morning sickness. You had all-day sickness.
All-day sickness. I was I was tired all the time.
Yeah.
I felt very weak.
Very emotionally drained all the time.
Yeah. So, and I didn't have a job. I was looking for a job for almost 2 months.
Yeah.
Which was hard and boring. You know, I was at home doing nothing.
Yeah.
Having all the time I wanted to think about all the scary stuff and the baby and am I ready? Am I able to have a baby? Etc.
Yeah.
But now I feel so much better since I can feel the baby and that I started to show.
Yeah.
It became more real, and now I'm just super excited and much more joyful than
awesome.
The first month. Yeah.
Cool.
What about you?
Wow. I think I was excited from day one. There have been highs and lows. The lows haven't been very low, but there have been lower times where I was like, man, like you're doing this. You have to, like, you don't have a choice. You have to be a dad now.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've told you this, but I've always felt like my job in life was to be a dad. I've always wanted to be a dad. So
you were born to be a dad?
I was born to be a dad. So obviously from the get-go, I was very excited. But yeah, of course, it doesn't come without having doubts and fears and like you. But yeah, I mean, I'm not the one carrying a child, so I understand how that would be harder on you.
But you've been very supportive to me.
Thanks, baby.
Yeah.
I think before we move on to the next question, because the next question, I'm not going to spoil it.
Can I just add something?
Yeah, of course.
And I think it's very important to talk about these things because, you know, in the collective imaginary, collectif inconscient.
The unconscious collective. I don't know. Yeah, in everybody's sort of
minds.
Yeah.
Having a baby should be great news. Like you should be happy about it.
Right.
You should be super excited.
Around,
you know?
Yeah.
Exactly. There is this stigma. But no, like you're allowed to feel whatever you're feeling and take the time to feel fear
and not be guilty about it.
Like it's super new, it's super foreign. It's okay.
It's scary.
It's scary.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's like you're bringing another person into this world.
Yeah.
You don't want to mess them up.
And you don't have this much representation about a woman being scared at first and express it and being supported. You know.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah. I just wanted to add. I wanted to add two things actually.
Yeah.
The first one, I want to say that I think there's this tradition when you get married, when you cut the cake. I don't know if this is everywhere, but it's definitely in Brazil because
in Mexico.
No, the person who yelled it is Brazilian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah.
So there's this video of Zoe and I cutting a cake at our wedding, and someone in Portuguese yelled, "You got to make a wish, make a wish, make a wish,
make a wish."
And before we cut the cake, I turn to Zoe and I say, "Bébé, bébé."
Bébé.
I say it twice. So because of that, we thought it was going to be twins for a while, because it was like, I mean, you were spot on, like on your wish. It might have been super spot on.
That's so crazy.
But yeah, my wedding cake slice wish was to have a baby.
And it was 2 hours before.
Yeah. A couple of hours later, boom, comes true. So that's the first thing I wanted to bring up before we move on. And the other thing, which I think is funny, I think it's a funny story, and this relates back to Burning Man.
Ah, yeah.
You know what I'm going to say? So this is going to seem like a crazy tangent. I wouldn't consider our relationship to be an open relationship, but we try to be a little open in general. And Burning Man isn't my vibe at all. raves, stuff like that. It's not my scene at all. And I know you were going there for a week, and you're gonna do stuff. You're gonna go on other planets. You're gonna have a great time. And I had heard that there was a sex dome there. And I was like, you're about to be tied down for the rest of your life with me. We're about to get married. And I remember telling you, listen, if a moment comes where you're like, I'm gonna go wild right now, and you want to just really like, how do I say it? If you just want to go for it, right? just go for it.
Yeah. Basically, you just told me that you wanted me to be free and not being restricted.
Right. If there was a moment like where you really felt sorry, I'm like
this urge.
Where you have this need to like experience this thing.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Totally okay with
Which we love.
Our motto was, what happens in Burning Man stays in Burning Man.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. I would have told you, but...
Right, you're right. But anyways, and so I told her this, and then you come back, and, you told me that there was this one moment where, like, maybe something could happen, but
nothing happened.
Nothing happened. You also told me that you felt like the timing was off. Like maybe you would have tried something, but because the next time we were going to see each other was to get married.
Yeah.
And so the last person you would have slept with essentially wouldn't have been me.
Yeah.
There was something in your brain about
it was too weird for me.
Because we were seeing each other the day we were getting married. Like we didn't even...
The day before.
Oh, was it
you
the day
arrived
before?
the day on the 6th, yeah.
Gotcha. But there were a bunch of people. It was all your friends staying, like sleeping with us and stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways, the timing made it so you were uncomfortable about it.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But the first time Zoe gets a scan, the first time the doctor measures the baby, measures it, she gives us a rough estimate of when the baby is due, and she says beginning of June, like first days of June or late in May.
Yeah.
And
which leads us to
which lines
end
up
of August.
perfectly to when she was in Burning Man and before we had seen each other. So I wasn't worried, but I was like, Zoe,
hey,
just tell me.
Tell me. Hey, talk to me.
I'm not mad. I said go for it if you wanted to go for it. And I didn't even say you had to tell me. So like you didn't need to tell me if you didn't want to. I knew I feel like you would, but you didn't have to. And I was just like, if you want to tell me, tell me. And it became this recurring joke that Zoe had a Burning Man baby, and I just wasn't the dad. But unfortunately, there was a time where it could have been either or, but now we're at a point where they've assured us that the due date was even later than we think it is. They think it's the June 10th. We know it's June 8th.
We know it's 8th.
Because a week after the wedding, we were in a small van where very little happened. Anyways, we're getting into our real personal life here.
Unfortunately, you're the father.
I am the father.
Yeah,
it's that moment in the show where it's like, Loic Superville, you are the father. All right, okay, fine. I'm okay with that too. All right, I just wanted to...
That's a funny story.
I just wanted to bring that up before we move on. But okay, let's move on. Let's move on to the next question. This is a more psychological question. We're going into your
brain.
You're going into your brain here. Before we dated, you had no interest in having a baby. You were not interested in being a mom.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that? And also, at one moment, if you remember, did you know you wanted to have a baby with me? Or that you wanted to have a baby?
With you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not that I didn't want babies. Didn't want to have a baby.
Okay.
But I didn't see myself as a mother, as a mom.
Wow.
And I think it comes from maybe my family situation. Like my father left when I was 6, and I always felt like a burden to him.
Wow.
And like we took away his freedom, And I think it was a general thing, like with my mother and stuff.
Yeah, like the whole family situation.
Yeah.
He made you guys feel like, okay, I'm sacrificing for you guys.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's rough.
And so by having children myself, I was maybe thinking I would lose my freedom as well, And I think when I was younger, I was way more freedom was really important to me, I was really attached to my freedom, and I was also way more selfish, and I didn't want to have any responsibilities. So all this, didn't make me want to have children.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, if your parents make you feel like having you guys didn't make them happy, like why would you choose that life?
Yeah. And my mother, she took care of my brother and I since my father left. But she also kind of put this little grain in our heads that
She's sacrificing.
Yeah, like I'm doing everything I can for you. I make you guys come ahead before everything else in my life.
Yeah,
and you should be grateful for it.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, maybe not. But also I was
maybe not.
I wasn't really thinking about it. I was just doing my thing.
Right, you
doing my life.
Yeah.
But also, like it was the same for marriage. But I think it was stronger for marriage than rather than having children. Like again, my parents never got married, so they didn't get divorced either. They just got separated, and it wasn't a truly loving relationship example. You know what I mean?
It wasn't a good partnership.
No, it wasn't. So my reference in terms of relationship was not healthy,
Right.
And before you, all the relationships I had were not healthy either. But when I met you, it changed everything. I don't know. I don't remember a precise moment where I told myself, okay, I want to have children with this guy. It came pretty early in our relationship and pretty naturally also. But I don't know, you change everything. You change. First of all, you showed me what a loving relationship should be, And so I think from the moment I realized we were having a healthy relationship, we were doing good, we were being good for each other, we were growing together, we were supporting, helping, and nurturing, our relationship. First of all, I realized, okay, all the things I experienced before were were trash, were not good. And I think because of that, it made me want to have children with you. And there's also for me this repair desire. I want to give my kids all the things I didn't have.
Yeah.
On a emotional level.
Right.
And
I think that also that's where you wanting to be ready psychologically comes in, is that you don't want your kids to feel what you felt as a child.
Yeah, exactly. Because for example, I know now that there was a lot of anger in both my parents. And so they brought this into the foyer.
Yeah, home. Into the home, yeah.
And I know I have a lot of anger in me still, even though I'm working on it. And I don't want to put that on my kids. I want to be a emotional, regulated human being before raising another one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So that's why I'm still a bit triggered, and I'm afraid. And of course we're gonna fuck up things. But the most important part for me is being aware.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think we're getting there together. So that's why I want to have kids with you. And because you're gonna be the best dad ever and the best partner ever. Like I often say that I wouldn't do that with anybody else, and people laugh and they're like, "Yeah, you better do. You'd better.
You better
You'd better
do.
do. Yeah, you'd better." And I'm like, no, no, no. But if I wasn't with Loic, I wouldn't have kids. Period. You know.
Yeah.
I think it's the team we create together that makes me wanna share this adventure. You know.
Okay. Thank you for that answer. Thank you for that answer.
My pleasure.
Thanks for the little burp. All right. Can we move on to the next question?
Yeah.
So, Zoe, and for those of you that don't know, I was raised by French parents, as you know.
Yes.
But they lived their entire lives in Mexico.
Yeah.
And grew up in Mexico. And then me and my siblings, when we were very young, moved to the U.S. and grew up in the U.S.
Yes.
Which means that we were constantly surrounded by different styles of parenting.
Uh-huh.
You know, my parents were raised by very French people, even though they lived in Mexico for their whole lives. Their parents were fully French, so they had a very ingrained French way of raising their children. And they grew up in a Mexican environment where they would see how Mexicans raise their children. And then they moved to the US, and we were surrounded by people that were raised by American parents. So that's my background. You were raised fully French.
Yes.
Like surrounded by French parents. Your parents are French. Your grandparents are French. 100% French. Mm-hmm. Rural French. Do you think that the French and the American attitudes about parenting differ? If so, how? And how do you think that we'll be able to blend those styles? I say American and French and not Mexican because even though, you know, it's a part of my identity, I think, not so much because I grew up my entire life in the U.S. I feel like the U.S. is a big part of my identity, more so than Mexican.
Yeah.
And even though I was raised by French parents, I do think I have a very clear sense of American parenting and things that I think work.
Which I don't.
Which you don't.
Yeah.
Would you like me to tell you kind of what I think?
Oh yes, please.
The American.
I would love to.
I've always, and I don't know if this is so true. I remember growing up feeling that this was very clear to me. I remember growing up and seeing American parents behave this way, and for me it was just like, okay, this is how they differ from French parenting, big time. Mm-hmm. And I've seen a lot of videos and TikToks about this, so I don't think I'm the only one. But in America, there's this huge thing with positive encouragement, which me personally, I agree with more. When I was a kid, I would make fun of it. Like, you would always like imagine this like parent on the sidelines of a soccer game and like their child is like sitting on the field and they're like, yeah, Jeremy, good job. You do what you gotta do. And it's like, I used to make fun of that, but I think, yeah, Jeremy is a 4-year-old kid who wants to sit on the ground and play with the grass. Encourage that.
Yes.
Encourage him. Doesn't have to score goals to be the best kid. So there's that. In France, there's a lot more of this sense of negative reinforcement.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it's the way you get a child to like behave and to do better is by letting them know that what they're doing is not so good. And there's honesty to that, which is like, you're not going to always, and this is why I would make fun of the American parenting, because it's like, no, clearly your son isn't doing what he's supposed to, or your kid, sorry, isn't doing what he was told to do. Don't like encourage that. Don't give every single child a participatory ribbon when clearly there was one child who gave it all and who went for it and who succeeded. Like, let's just celebrate. We can celebrate some victories. But in France, there's really this thing of like, when you're parenting a child where it's like, you get a 17 out of 20, which is an A, and they'll be like, why didn't you get an 18 or 19 or 20? You can always do better. And this goes back to another episode that we did with education versus careers, and has always confused me, where I feel like the education system and the parenting system in France is a lot more rigorous. And yet in the US, people are a lot more career driven and have a lot more ambition in terms of their profession. So I don't. And again, we're generalizing. I'm generalizing, and I know this, but this is the sense that I've gotten. So, sorry, that was a long answer, but I think it's important for you to know that was kind of what I felt growing up, were the differences.
But it's interesting because for me, I mean, yeah, to me, your parents raised you more in the French way
Definitely.
than the American way.
100%.
But there's, yeah,
But it doesn't mean that I'm not affected
of course.
by American parents, you know? I was babysat by American parents. I spent time a lot of time.
Yeah, and we basically spend more time at school with friends
Yeah.
and with teachers.
And when I go on play dates, like, you know,
Yeah.
I see how they interact with their child, how they treat me. It's not the same.
Yeah. I would say that my parents raised me. I mean, they were all about, structure, discipline,
Yeah.
performance. But not very encouraging,
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of positive reinforcement.
There wasn't.
Yeah.
No. There was more, blaming and faults.
Finger pointing.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the thing you just said about the notes, about the grades.
Oh yeah.
Like my father would tell me this. Like I was quite a good student until high school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was always top of my classes, but it was like I had to be the best one, quitte à écraser les autres.
Oh, like even if it meant like pushing people aside and
even if
if you get in my way,
I'm
gonna step over you.
Yeah, it was
Ruthless.
super competitive. But in every aspect of life,
Of
like
course,
at
it bleeds
school,
into
in sports, in all the outside activities I was doing, and there was not much space for emotions. I would say.
Yeah.
So yeah, when I would come back with an 18, he would genuinely ask me, "Why didn't you have a 20?"
Yeah.
And the other students, what are their grades? Oh, somebody had a 19. Why they and not you?
Yeah.
Which is so stupid because first of all, the things we learn at school, and I don't know if it's a French thing, might be, but most of the things we learn are so useless for our.
Funnily enough, I think it's more so in the U.S. I believe more in the things that are taught in French schools.
Okay.
Is more important, like cultural knowledge, whereas in the U.S. And again, this goes back to another episode, but we talked a lot about how in the U.S. they teach how to take tests, essentially how to take standardized testing.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's why they make fun of a lot of Americans for like not knowing geography.
Yeah, that's true.
But is that essential? Maybe not. But I do think that going to school for your brain development is good. It's not about learning things that we end up forgetting anyways. It's about learning how to learn and how to work.
I basically felt like I've been taught how to be the best and now not how to be a happy person in life,
I to kind of piggyback on what you're saying, I think as well, it's not so much a French versus US thing, which again, we like to bring up because of what this podcast is about. I do also think it's a generational thing.
Yes.
Like even though we felt like maybe French parents were a little more strict, I find that French parents today aren't as strict as they used to be. I think that we're making a lot more space for emotions.
Like
as you
young
said.
parents?
Yeah.
You mean, yeah.
Like maybe it's like our friends like
group.
Yeah, maybe it's our social circles that are like this. I do think it still exists. Parents who are like, "Ugh." Yeah. I feel like parents are taking more time to really help our kids be emotionally not sane, but emotionally healthy. and not just the best
Yeah.
at whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good way that we're evolving in parenting.
And that's exactly where I want us to go in terms of parenting.
Yeah.
I think this was the second part of your question.
Yes, it is.
How will we
Go for it.
blend our both our experiences and education styles? Yeah, for me, I just want my kids to feel loved, secure, safe, and I think it goes by being as I said, regulated and self-aware persons.
Yeah.
I do love the American positive reinforcement thing.
Yeah.
And I think there's going to be a lot of that in our home.
In our parenting style, yeah.
Yeah. Can I just ask you maybe if you can share some Mexican memories? I mean, Mexican. I mean, how did it come up in your education? Because you were also taken care of by a Mexican nanny.
Yeah.
So
it's funny because like the most Mexican person in my life, like the most important Mexican person in my life was my nanny, who came from Mexico with us when she was only 17 at the time. She worked for my parents in Mexico and wanted to keep working with them. So they brought her to the US when she was very, very young, and she had a child. And I always kind of considered her my second mom, but she very rarely sort of disciplined me. Mm-hmm. Like, I remember a few instances where like she like made it clear that like she wasn't very happy with what I had done, or she was like I remember sometimes I would spend like the entire day playing video games. Yeah. And she's
already at the time.
Yeah. And like at the end of the day, she made it clear that like, dude, maybe don't. But she only kind of implied it. She never disciplined me because I think she never felt like it was her job.
Okay.
Even though she did raise us, so it was kind of like this weird thing. But I saw the way she parented her kids.
Yeah.
And it was. I found it to be very strict.
Okay.
But I feel like the reason that is because she was raising her two Mexican children in the U.S. and she was like, I want them to make something of themselves, and it's not going to be easy for them necessarily. Not as easy as these privileged white kids that I'm taking care of as well. So they're going to have to work twice as hard to make it. And I think that that's why she was a lot stricter with them than she ever would be with us, which is, it makes me sad thinking about it, but it's just, I think it was the reality of her situation. For me, it was like the way I associated Mexican parenting, just because, again, she was the most important Mexican person in my life, and I saw this firsthand. But all my uncles and aunts who, like my parents, were born and raised and stayed in Mexico their entire lives. So I had cousins who were born and raised who don't even speak French, who live in Mexico. I kind of saw how they were raised, and I think the biggest difference was how much freedom they were allowed.
Okay. Interesting.
I guess for better or worse, because I have some cousins who kind of flew off the handle and who could, I remember seeing this from the US. Like, I was like, what are they doing over there? Like, they're just like, we're like 15 years old and they're like getting so drunk. And I'm like, I'm so afraid of touching any sort of alcohol until I'm 21. There was also this like sort of like dagger of Damocles. Damocles?
In French, it's épée de Damoclès.
But I don't think it's pronounced Damocles in English. Anyways, there was this thing that my parents sort of like would remind us of. I don't know how true this is, but they were like, if you get caught like drinking, especially drinking and driving, but even when we weren't old enough for that, like if you get caught drinking, they will send us back to Mexico. Like if we break any sort of law, we will be going back to Mexico.
That's awful.
And there might have been some truth to it, but I remember us being like it's really, really important that we don't get caught doing anything stupid. Like other kids will just get like a slap on the wrist. We felt like we would go back to a country we knew nothing about because I left when I was 3. So anyways, I do feel like for us, it was like I never imagined myself sneaking out, going to a party, drinking. Whereas
which I did a lot.
Which you did a lot, and which my Mexican cousins did all the time, and they were smoking and drinking, and I remember being like, I kind of felt like there was this freedom that maybe there's also in France that we just did not have in the U.S.
I don't know, but for me, I became such a bad behaved kid because my mother, especially at the time, was so authoritarian with me.
Authoritarian?
Authoritarian.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to test her, you know, and test my boundaries.
Yeah.
And to...
You wanted to rebel.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
Sorry, I
never...
cut you.
No. I never had this. I never wanted to rebel. I never wanted to be a bad kid. I wanted... I say this, but my mom thought I was a very rebellious kid. But even though I was like, looking back, I was like, I did nothing.
Yeah.
But she thought I was rebellious because I would like question everything she would say and all the rules, which we'll get to that. But I stand by that method of like letting your kid question things,
and
not just accept,
and giving them some explanations.
Sure.
That they can understand. You know?
But I would, I wouldn't talk back in a bad way, but I would talk back all the time and be like, yeah, but why? Like, why are we doing this? And she found that super rebellious, even though like looking back now and seeing what we could have done. And I tell my mom this all the time. I was like, we could have been drug addicts. Like, we're fine. We're doing okay. But anyways, sorry. We went on a crazy tangent. Let's come back to what were we talking about, which was, yes, I felt from my American point of view that in Mexico, my uncles and aunts were a lot chiller and cooler about most anything. And as a kid, I think I might have thought it was kind of like they were cuckoo over there. Not.
They were cuckoo over there.
It's gonna sound bad, but for me, they were just like they were running wild. They were living la vida loca, as we say. And
Okay, and how do you see the way we're gonna educate our kids?
Oh wow. Well, to go back to what you were saying earlier about, the importance of their emotional education, the positive reinforcement, which is super important. I constantly go back and forth between that as well, where of course you want to encourage them and, but I don't want to be like a yes parent, and I don't want to be like, yeah, you keep doing that. Like, you're doing great. Like, of course I want some of that. I want to be that parent who like says, yeah, you want to sit on the grass and look at the grass and look at the insects, you go for it. But I also want to give them a sense of direction, of like importance of doing work and doing work well and doing things thoroughly and taking pride in your work and taking pride in the things that you do, and to not just go about life sort of like, yeah, whatever, like I don't really care about anything. Like, I don't know if that's something we are able to instill in our children. Maybe they just naturally have this like drive and they're just born with it. And if they don't have it, whatever. So it's not us that are going to give that them that drive. But I know for a fact that a lot of my sort of ambition and wanting to do well in life comes from my parents and comes from the way they raised me. And also the French school, kind of gives us that, not a competitive behavior, but a little bit of like
a structure.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, I don't know. I think we're constantly going to be balancing out like being emotionally available for them and letting them take the time and space that they need to figure themselves out without us being behind them like, come on, you got to do this, But also, a little fire under the bum every now and then to like get them to, come on, a little, little jolt of, not actual fire under. We're not gonna.
No.
We're not gonna harm our child.
No, but we're gonna discover that pretty soon. I mean, experience that.
Yeah.
It's happening.
And the feedback that we've gotten a lot is that your child teaches you to be a parent. And I think we're going to have to adapt. Maybe this won't even be a thing that we'll have to figure out is how to motivate them, because they'll just be even more motivated than we could ever imagine. It's things like this where it's like you got to go with the flow, and you can't decide in advance.
Yeah, with the ADHD dad they're going to be
Going to be all over the place.
very active kids.
Do you feel like you answered that question? Or do you want a concluding? Yeah?
No.
All right, good.
I think we're good.
Yeah, we covered it all. All right, we're gonna move on to the last question. This is a question that I've been pondering myself quite a bit.
Yeah.
What do you think will be the child's language identity? How do you see us raising this child, linguistically speaking? Yeah. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, of course. I think our baby's first language is gonna be French, because we mostly speak French together.
Mm-hmm.
And that babies can listen when they are in the womb.
In the
womb?
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 I like womb. Is that what you said? Womb?
Womb. In the womb?
That sound. This looks more.
This looks like a womb.
It looks like a womb to me.
Right?
Yeah. Anyways, let's change it.
So yeah, studies say that babies can hear from the womb, almost there, from they don't know exactly, but from around 5-6 months.
So the baby is starting to hear us now.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And so
the baby is enjoying this podcast.
I hope so.
Wow, what a lucky baby! He gets this podcast for free in advance preview.
Yeah, how lucky, huh?
How lucky.
But anyways, so this, they can basically hear us speaking, and the language they are listening to is mainly French.
Yeah.
And we're gonna speak to the baby mostly in French. I mean, I think it's a huge chance to have bilingual, even trilingual parents, because when you learn a new language at an early age, it's so much easier than if you start later, or when you're already an adult. So I think we should use that chance, that privilege, you know.
Yeah.
And I think we're gonna make this baby bilingual at least. But the thing we have to be
careful
about is not confuse them.
Yeah. That's my biggest fear.
And
I feel like I grew up confused. I don't speak any language well.
That's not true.
It's
Are you
a little
crazy?
true. I don't. You know what I mean? I don't feel like I'm not that good. I'm not super good at any of the languages I speak.
You're not good in English?
I'm not as good in English as you are in French by a long shot. I
don't agree.
I promise.
I don't agree. When you do interviews in English, I'm always so amazed by
that's nice.
The ease.
But that's because you're not fluent in English. I feel like I know what you're saying.
I disagree with you.
I think my parents did a really good job at maintaining or at making me speak French at home, because it was like this forbidden language at home. And back then I didn't really understand why.
Forbidden?
It wasn't really forbidden, but it was kind of forbidden. Where it was like, if you spoke English, it's like, why are you speaking English? And it's gotten to the point, I don't know if this is a good thing, but where it's almost awkward to speak to my parents in English, less and less.
I understand.
But
that.
whenever one of us was dating an English person, it was really, really hard for us to speak in English because it was this feels so unnatural. But I think that was important because we were surrounded by English all the time, and the only place we spoke French was in classroom, which was a lot, but it wasn't even necessarily with friends, it was only in the classroom, and you're not talking necessarily in class, you're just listening to the professor. So the only French I would be doing was occasionally in class or with or some of my friends. And it was really important for my parents that I speak French at home. And I think that was really important because I would have lost a lot of French had I not done that.
Yeah, of course.
But I was still confused.
Yeah, but that's the crazy part to me, because I think what's really important as parents is to dedicate a language to a specific
Person.
person or environment, you know? And I think they did a pretty good job at that.
Super good job.
Because it was French at home,
Yep.
English at school, and Spanish with your nanny. But still, you're telling me you're confused.
Yeah.
So isn't it the good thing to do?
It is. It is. I think I'm not that good with languages. I'm not like... This is like, I actually think that I have a really hard time learning new languages. And even though my two oldest siblings left Mexico when they were, at an age where you start really speaking it, and which wasn't the case for me, they have an ease with languages. I mean, for God's sakes, my sister was a Spanish and English teacher, and she excelled at both. And she writes things, and I'm like, how do you know this word exists? And she's 4 years older than me. It's not like it's so I think I just have a hard time with languages in general.
Okay. I don't want to gaslight you, and this is your reality, And maybe that's true for Spanish.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be more obvious with Spanish.
Yeah.
But to me, you speak amazingly in French and English.
Thank you.
And I think you should.
I'm really scared of you have you have a notes with all the stupid French things I say, or all the things in French I say that don't make sense. So you can't tell me with a straight face that I don't like.
That's just sometimes,
Every now and then you say something that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I think there was a lot of shame for me in regards to speaking Spanish as well, because I would be made fun of, which it was harmless, but it for me it was a big deal because I was a little kid, and every time I spoke Spanish, I would make a little mistake because I didn't speak it that much, and my family would laugh at it, which is fine, it's harmless, but I do think it affected me a lot. Where it was like, well, I'm just going to stop speaking Spanish because I feel like every time I speak Spanish, we make fun of me, and. Again, it wasn't mean, but it obviously affected me in a way that now I really struggle with Spanish. I struggle because I speak it less, but also because there's still this shame of stress that if I mess up, I'm going to be made fun of. But yes, to go back to the child, which is the subject of the episode and not me, I do think it's super, and I do think my parents did it well, and I think I'm just a weird case of I just have a hard time with languages, which is why I do the videos that I do. But I do think it's important for us to set up hey, you can speak in English with your dad.
Yeah.
But at school you speak French. With mom you speak French. Because if we start talking to the baby in two languages, they'll start not knowing which is which.
I know, but the problem is that they're gonna hear us switching from French to English at times.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure we can control that, We have
to talk to a specialist. Maybe we're going to mess up our baby. We should start going into...
No, but I think we didn't really think about it yet.
Yeah.
What we want to do, exactly, in terms of, language boundaries.
Yeah.
But I'm sure he's going to learn at least French and English from an early age.
For sure. And I really do want them to be able to learn Spanish too.
Yes.
But
I can learn with them.
Can
I?
Yeah. What my brother, because my brother had a child 2 years ago.
Yeah.
What they did is they got a Spanish speaking nanny.
Yeah.
And the nanny speaks to them in Spanish, and that's how I learned Spanish. So, and I know that that's how a lot of people learn Spanish or any other language that isn't the parents' main language. They'll hire a nanny who speaks that language to talk to the child in that language, and they'll automatically pick up third language.
Oh, we can move to Mexico.
Or we could move to Mexico. That's another.
Oh, I would love to.
Yeah, man.
As you can see, I just want to move.
All right. There was another question that I had in mind that I didn't put into the questionnaire. First of all, because we're out of time. It's the end of the episode. But also because there's another episode that we're going to use to talk about the subject, which is the whole gender situation of trying to bring a child up in a world where we try not to assign them any gender roles. So yeah, that's going to be a subject that we'll talk about in our gender roles
Can't wait.
podcast, which I can't wait for either. I think it's going to be a super interesting subject matter, especially in regards to raising a child. But yeah, so this is where this episode ends.
Yeah.
Leaving on that little cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Make sure to join us on that episode, and make sure to join us next week for the next episode of French Kiss. This was so nice. I spoke a lot. I'm sorry. I was really. This subject was really
Close to your heart.
very close to my heart.
That's
And yeah,
good.
I think that I hope it was 50-50.
We'll see.
We'll see.
But your questions were very interesting.
Thank you, and thank you so much for your answers. And yeah, had a great time.
Yes, me too.
All right. Hope to see you guys next week on the next episode of French Kiss.